Hi everyone, my name is Miss Barnes, and today we are talking about the Schlieffen Plan. So, as we already know, Germany had created a triple alliance with Austria-Hungary and Italy in 1882. European alliances were normal, but what made this one different is that it was made in a time of peace. Normally, countries sought allies when they were about to go to war. So the fact that Germany made a triple alliance during a time of apparent peace and didn't reveal the details of it caused a lot of tension in Europe. Regardless of what Germany's intentions were, the effect was a great deal of suspicion. Now, with the Industrial Revolution that had recently swept through Europe, many nations had upgraded their technology. The beginning of the 20th century saw the arrival of industrialization, which helped many countries make a lot of weapons very quickly. And these weapons saw upgrades too. Nations were developing more long-range weapons, such as artillery and grenades. Militaries were building up, and many countries were itching for an opportunity to show just how advanced they were, Germany included. So let's review. Germany had made a nice little alliance for themselves to help in war times. Great! Unfortunately, that made everyone else suspicious and on edge. Not so great. Germany has been quickly advancing their weapons and building their military. Great! But so has everyone else. That's not so great. Okay, so picture this. You are a prominent German general in 1905. Russia and France are allied and cover both your east and west borders. Tensions are high, and you've made a big secret allyship with Austria-Hungary and Italy, causing a great deal of suspicion from other European nations. You have a large military. What do? Well, if you're Alfred von Schlieffen, a German general in 1905, you come up with a plan so genius, so airtight that if war ever broke out, it would guarantee a German victory. And then you name it after yourself. The Schlieffen Plan. The Schlieffen Plan was designed specifically to avoid a war on two fronts, which is exactly what Germany was worried about with the French on their west border and the Russians on their east. They didn't want to split their military, so they wanted to find a way to fight one country at a time. Remember, France and Russia were allies, and frankly, neither of them liked Germany very much. One thing that Germans had on their side was that Russia wasn't as technologically advanced. They were slow getting into the Industrial Revolution, and it showed in their military. They had recently lost the Russo-Japanese War, which was an embarrassing defeat considering the size of their countries. Though large, the Russians were still primarily on foot and horseback. The Germans, however, had trains that went through Belgium and into France. That was where the first step of the plan came in. See, because Germany knew Russia was going to take a while to get to the border, Schlieffen figured that they had time to deal with France. If another war broke out between Germany and France, the Germans planned to send troops to the border to keep the French busy. Meanwhile, a different set of troops would move quickly through Belgium, come around the back of the French troops, taking Paris as they went, and force the French army to surrender, leaving just enough time to head to their east border and meet the Russians when they got there. Schlieffen believed it would take 6 weeks for Russia to mobilize their troops, and that Germany could easily defeat France within 45 days. It was perfect, foolproof, and would certainly win Germany any war. Except it didn't. Okay, now take a minute at home or wherever you are and think. Pause this video if you need to. What do you think went wrong? The Schlieffen Plan didn't work, and I'm about to tell you why, but before I do, I want you to make a prediction. What failed? Have you made your prediction? Okay then, let's continue. So, to sum up, the Schlieffen Plan relied on a few things. Russia would take a long time to mobilize, much longer than France. Germany would be able to take their trains quickly through Belgium and get to the other side of the French army. And this would all happen swiftly enough that the Germans would be able to defeat France and make their way to Russia before the Russian army even got there. But that's not what happened. You see, World War I started with the assassination of Franz Ferdinand, Archduke of Austria-Hungary. He was killed by a Serbian nationalist. Because of this event, Austria-Hungary declared war on Serbia. Now, unfortunately, Serbia didn't have any official allies at the time. Lucky for them, Russia had strong ties to Serbia and wanted to protect the political and religious structures that already existed there. So, naturally, they declared war on Austria-Hungary. Now, Russia was a lot bigger than Austria-Hungary, and even though Russia was poor, they had numbers. Lucky for Austria-Hungary, they had an ally, Germany. So, Germany declared war on Russia. Here's where it all starts to fall apart for Germany. Because of how bitter France was after the Franco-Prussian War, Germany was positive that if war was ever declared against them, it would be France doing the declaring. Instead, Germany had Russia declaring war against them, and the French wouldn't be joining in for another 2 weeks. So, with Russia mobilizing first, what does Germany do? Do they change the plan? Scrap it completely? Nope. They continue on exactly as planned, certain that this would be the only hiccup in the operation. Except it wasn't. See, Germany was pretty sure it would only take a few days, maybe a week, to get through Belgium. Belgium was so small and weak, and it would surely let German troops pass through without worry. After all, they weren't in this war. They were neutral. But when the Germans got to the Belgian border, they were denied free passage. So they started fighting their way through. But wait, what's this? Who has an allyship with Belgium? It's Britain, a much bigger and stronger nation coming to help their Belgian allies. What was supposed to be a quick passage into France had turned into a long and grueling battle in which the German army had to continuously send more troops to fight in. But at least they had lots of time before Russia got to them, right? Wrong. While it was assumed that Russia would take approximately 6 weeks to mobilize and start their attack on Germany, instead they were ready in just 10 days. See, after the Russo-Japanese War, Russia decided it was time to get with the times. They spent the last 2 decades prior to World War I bettering their military technology. They were still behind Germany in terms of weaponry, but they were far above Germany's expectations of them. Germany sent many of their troops to fend off the Russians, while some stayed on the French front, still trying to take Belgium and move into France. It wasn't even worth it in the end, as French mobilized quickly enough to defend their border and their cities. Germany was never able to get around the army, and instead this front would slowly devolve into trench warfare over the next 4 years. So, was your prediction correct? Germany had 3 main points that the Schlieffen Plan needed to rely on. Firstly, Russia would be slow to mobilize their military. Secondly, Belgium would be small and easy to pass through. And thirdly, France would be weak and surrender quickly. In the end, none of those turned out to be true. And so the thing that Germany had spent decades actively trying to avoid finally happened. There was a war on 2 fronts. In the next lesson, we will talk about the expectations versus the realities of World War I and why so many countries got involved. Until then, have a good rest of your day, take care of yourself, and remember, if you're making a plan that relies heavily on things you aren't sure about and offers no wiggle room if things go wrong, you might need to make a new plan.